So after the travesty that was Maniac Cop, I'm really surprised I went ahead and watched the second one. But I had a 12-hour train journey and the entire trilogy lined up on my MacBook, so I watched all of them. And I gotta say, I was quite surprised.
Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes everyone, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss movies that all at once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host Jukebox Harry, and today I am tackling a sequel to a very maligned film that I touched upon in a previous episode. So like this film, I'm going to jump straight into it. Maniac Cop 2 picks up exactly where the last film left off. As in, it literally uses scenes from the previous film. Then it uses intro credits, which drag on for another 5 minutes, and already the film feels, once again, like it's padding out the bloody running time. If you took away the recycled footage and the drawn-out intro credits, Maniac Cop 2 would only run for 78 minutes, so this has been done out of some kind of necessity. Then we start with the robbery. The robber shoots the lights out. Now this doesn't make sense at first, but we gather it's because, once again, we have to use darkness to hide the face of the Maniac Cop, even though we've seen it. There's no more surprise lying in wait. It's just that we have to use shadows to save money on the makeup budget. But because the mystery of this is over, if we saw the disfigured face of Cordell more, then it actually might make the film more intense. Cordell kills an innocent civilian, and then hands the weapon back to a robber. And already I'm confused as hell again. He's not trying to kill anyone involved in his death. He's not trying to frame anyone this time. Just what is he doing? But then I remembered that I nearly had a bloody brain aneurysm trying to understand the character motivations and nonsensical plotting from the first film. So I just bit my tongue and said, it's just happening. This is just how it goes. The police arrive and shoot the robber repeatedly until he flies through the window. And this scene isn't particularly gory, but it's already way better than any of the deaths from the first Maniac Cop, so this is the first hint that we're looking at a better film. Then we're greeted by the characters from the first film, Jack and Teresa. And once again I have to repeat my sentiments from the end of the first film. How was Jack found innocent? Let me just replay you a clip. The only suspect they can actually place at the scene is Jack. And like I said, they've spent the entire film blaming him for all the murders, despite all the evidence on the contrary. So by that rationale, they should believe Jack's guilty, right? Nah, he's innocent, because the film has no more running time left. So Jack's been cleared as the killer, but they haven't found Cordell's body, so just who the hell do they suspect? Who honestly copped the blame for these crimes? Well, according to Riley, the police psychologist, it was just some random killer cop.
What you saw was a very large man with a horribly disfigured face. It could have been anyone in a policeman's uniform, right?
And then amid this conversation, Teresa randomly says this line.
What the hell difference does it make who he was?
Because you can't kill the dead.
Tari, let her go.
I'm already sick of you, Teresa. I do not want to deal with another film of you talking nonsense. For the record, I do not blame actress Laureen Landon for her performance. She's just working with a bad script that she's been given and some mediocre direction, but all in all, she's still very fucking annoying.
Are you going to find us unfit to go back on the job?
He's still
What?
Shut up! Oh my God, I don't care!
In Maniac Cop 2, we're introduced to a new police officer named Detective Lieutenant Shawn McKinney, played by Robert Davi from the Goonies. His performance is very much on par with that of Tom Atkins from the first Maniac Cop, in the sense that he's strong, but he's also willing to show emotion and be vulnerable at times. And then we get this scene where Riley talks to McKinney about how his partner killed himself.
It was a Friday. The following night, he committed suicide with his service revolver.
I know all about that. I found the body Monday morning.
And already I am not loving what's happening. The last time Maniac Cop used suicide as any kind of a plot line, it was when they had Tom Atkins' character briefly mention that he tried to kill himself after losing his partner in the line of duty, and they never did anything with it for the rest of the film.
The same fucking thing.
So I'm really worried at this point because Maniac Cop 2 is just trying to step back onto the same mistakes.
All this over again? For what? A few dollars? A few dollars, is that it? Money, 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 money!
And then against all odds, the film takes a quite phenomenal twist. Jack, the hero from the first film, Bruce Campbell himself, he gets fucking murdered. Cordell kills him. And that was a huge surprise because the star of a film is never meant to be the victim. Now this theme was used previously in Friday the 13th Part 2 where the protagonist of the first film gets killed off in the second, and like I said in the last video, Maniac Cop has been compared to Friday the 13th for many reasons, but the key difference is that the hero from the first Friday the 13th did not have the same star power as Bruce Campbell, so it's much easier to kill her off. But when cult superstar Bruce Campbell, who survived the battle with the Deadites in all 3 Evil Dead films, gets executed in this film, It's really a surprise. The film isn't even 20 minutes over and already it's trying to evoke a reaction out of its audience, and it's doing a decent job. I mean, the only time I could compare another film doing this was in Scream, when Wes Craven decided to kill off Drew Barrymore in the intro, and she was a pretty big star at the time, so that was taken as a huge surprise. So Maniac Cop 2 actually predates the far more successful Scream in using that plot twist, and the absent feeling that fans of Bruce Campbell will get is really justified by just how powerful it is when he's taken away from us. I say that as a huge Bruce Campbell fan. Then Cordell comes along to kill another police officer who's attempting to tow somebody's car. And the death scene isn't great, but then we have Riley approach the blind news clerk who was there when Jack was murdered, and he delivers a surprisingly impressive monologue. So I'm just going to put this scene in and let you guys watch it.
I lost my sight in combat in Sicily. A German grenade went off in my face, killed all the others in the foxhole around me. I lay there more than a day, surrounded by these dead bodies, buried in them. At night, they froze. Them being on top of me kept me from freezing too. I never thought I'd feel anything like that again. Frozen, dead flesh. Then I touched his hand. Just for a second, mind you, and I was back there again. With the dead.
Maniac Cop 2 is already using a higher standard of filmmaking to sustain itself, and honestly, it gets even better from there. We get a decent B-movie chase scene with Cordell pursuing Mallory and Riley. He catches up, and then kills Teresa Mallory. He kills the most annoying character in the Maniac Cop films. Just... thank you. Thank you, Cordell. You did us all a favor.
Flush that turd down the drain!
So both the survivors of the first film have been killed off. So the surprise has just doubled. Then we get a shot of some guy watching the news in a strip club. So while the first film was a lot lazier in how it did this, Maniac Cop 2 actually uses a convincing set, script, and narration to contribute to the belief that this is a genuine news report going on. And I know this is just a minor thing, but it really goes to show that director William Lustig is really working hard to try to make a better film. In the interview, we have Riley mention that she's finally convinced that Cordell actually is the killer, and that the Maniac Cop killings have been covered up while another killer who is out strangling strippers is getting all the attention.
He recovered and came back to revenge himself upon the police department and the city officials who railroaded him into jail in the first place.
And then there's boobs. And that's nice. Any 80s slasher film relying on genre gimmicks to carry itself definitely needs nudity. The guy in the club follows a stripper home and attacks her, but in comes the Maniac Cop. After Cordell kills the other police officer on the scene, he helps the killer escape, but nobody kills the stripper. I understand that Cordell likes to leave a witness behind, but I feel like this stripper killer probably doesn't want to get caught. Or does he? I don't know. I don't want to put too much thought into it this time. It killed me last time. So the stripper strangler takes the Maniac Cop back to his apartment and gives the whole speech about how much he respects Cordell.
I never thought really that I'd meet you. Or that we'd become friends.
And then Cordell speaks.
Can you write down your name? See, that way I'll know what to call you.
Again, the filmmakers are very inconsistent about whether Cordell can communicate with his voice or not. And earlier he screamed with the voice of a regular living human. But now he speaks with the ghostly voice of a dead spirit. The Strangler asks Cordell to tell him what happened. And then we get a flashback to Judge Black repeatedly hitting his gavel again. Yeah, this doesn't need to be here. You're not watching Maniac Cop 2 unless you've watched the first one, and if you've watched the first one, you've seen this exact scene, so you don't need to see it again. But again, running time. Worse still is that this scene, it just drags on. I know this is meant to be a powerful scene, but when you reuse footage from a previous film just to drag a film out to feature length, that's how you end up with Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
Garbage day!
Anyway, this conversation goes on, Cordell leaves, the police later catch the stripper strangler at a strip club and throw him in jail, and a pre-famed Danny Trejo is his cellmate. Nice. Next we have a pretty good death scene. Out of the blue, Cordell shoots several officers down and blood flies everywhere. This is the start of Cordell's true rampage, and this is the scene where the film really goes over the top. Cordell storms through the office, eliminating everyone in a frenzy of blood and broken glass. And this is a moment of peak quality in the film. Cordell is in full villainous form, killing every police officer in sight, breaking several convicts out, and stealing a police bus for a fairly solid B-movie chase scene with more intensity and wreckage than the earlier one. And during this scene, McKinney confronts Deputy Commissioner Edward Doyle to reopen the Cordell case and admit to the wrongdoing which was done that created the Maniac Cop.
Cordell got too close to you people at City Hall who were taking payoffs. So you framed him, put him in a fucking rat hole and set him up.
You murdered him.
Cordell arrives at Sing Sing, the prison where he was murdered after being wrongfully convicted. Doyle tries to reason with him, reaching out to any remaining humanity that may exist in Cordell.
In your first trial, perjury was committed. Even the presiding judge was influenced. We're the guilty ones.
And for a moment, you honestly feel like he could reason with the villain. For all the cliche slasher films that have one-dimensional villains, the emotion in Maniac Cop 2 makes you think for a second that you can actually reach out to him. But Cordell's rampage continues. Whilst in flames, he murders the 3 convicts who were responsible for mutilating him before turning and murdering the stripper strangler. The 2 fall out a window, both apparently dying, and the film closes on a sentimental note where the police mourn the tragic circumstances that actually led to Cordell becoming a Maniac Cop.
What is it?
No, nothing.
This might not be the dramatic climax that you could be hoping for, but by the standards of slasher films, it actually is fairly effective. There's a decent level of sentimentality there. And as expected, it ends on a Carrie-esque note where Cordell's hand shoots out of the grave. I don't know why nobody bothered to actually bury him, but anyway. Then the credits roll. So, is Maniac Cop 2 a good film? Against all odds, yeah it is. Director William Lustig credits Maniac Cop 2 as being his absolute best film, and I can definitely see why. Now objectively, Maniac Cop 2 still faces many limitations as a film of the slasher genre. The character development isn't phenomenal and their motivations are often questionable, but it succeeds in so many other areas where Maniac Cop failed. Maniac Cop had a lot of boring conversations which had no reason to exist in the film, but most of the dialogue in Maniac Cop 2 actually has a reason to be there. And even though the script doesn't delve as deep into the themes as it could, we still get just enough out of it to be able to feel sympathy towards the characters. Perhaps most importantly, Maniac Cop had a lot of boring death scenes, whereas Maniac Cop 2 was a lot more brutal and violent, and unexpected with who was getting killed and how. There was a lot more carnage, and that's what the genre enthusiasts are looking for. Maniac Cop went on a very predictable path. Maniac Cop 2 kept on twisting and turning in unexpected ways. In basically every way, Maniac Cop 2 delivers exactly what you would have been hoping for from Maniac Cop. It still doesn't utilize all the potential that it could with its wacky theme, but as a slasher film, it's far better. Now the only problem with this is you have to sit through the first Maniac Cop to be able to make sense of this one, and it might set your standards too high for Maniac Cop 3, which is the all-time low point of the trilogy. And I mean that in a bad way, like, it's just really boring and directionless. I just don't even see myself being able to even discuss it on this show. Maniac Cop 2 gets 7 murders done by people in political power to cover up internal corruption out of 10. It's a more dramatic, more violent, and more tenacious slasher film than its predecessor. It delivers what you wanted from the first film and fulfills its generic contract as a decent horror movie. It's not high art, it's slasher trash, but it's slasher trash done right. So that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devilish, you guys. If you've enjoyed today's episode and want to see more, please hit the subscribe button. If you have ideas for movies you want me to review, please leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, until next time, I'm your host, Jukebox Harry. Peace.